Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Amuratira Vanachari Amuratira Vanachari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giranadhari Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuratira Vanachari Yamuratira Vanachari
All glories to the Son of God. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 25, text 34. Ihadya santamatmanam.
Idaya Santanamatmanam.
Idamana tataparam.
Idama Tataparam.
Yeneyam nimitavira.
Yeneyam Nimitavira.
Puri sharanam atmana.
Puri Sharanam Atmana.
Ihadya santamatmanam.
Idaya Santanamatmanam.
Vidamana tataparam.
Vidamana Tataparam.
Yeneyam nimitavira.
Yeneyam Nimitavira.
Puri sharanam atmana.
Puri Sharanam Atmana.
Ihadya santamatmanam.
Idaya Santanamatmanam.
Vidamana tataparam.
Vidamana Tataparam.
Yeneyam nimitavira.
Yeneyam Nimitavira.
Puri sharanam atmana.
Puri Sharanam Atmana. Idaya Santanamatmanam. Idaya Santanamatmanam. Vidamana Tataparam. Vidamana Tataparam. Yeneyam Nimitavira. Yeneyam Nimitavira. Puri Sharanam Atmana. Puri Sharanam Atmana. Himaya Santanamatmanam. Vidamana Tataparam. Yeneyam Nimitavira. Puri Sharanam Atmana. Idaya Santanamatmanam. Vidamana Tataparam. Yeneyam Nimitavira. Puri Sharanam Atmana.
Ihadya.
Idaya.
Excuse me. Iha.
Iha.
Here.
Here.
Hadya.
Hadya.
Today.
Today.
Santam.
Santam.
Existing.
Existing.
Atmanam.
Atmanam.
Living entities.
Living entities.
Vidama.
Vidama.
That much we know.
That much we know.
Not.
Not.
Tataparam.
Tataparam.
Beyond that.
Beyond that.
Yena.
Yena.
By whom?
By whom?
Iyam.
Iyam.
This.
This.
Nimita.
Nimita.
Created.
Created.
Vira.
Vira.
O great hero.
O great hero.
Puri.
Puri.
City.
City.
Sharanam.
Sharanam.
Resting place.
Resting place.
Atmana.
Atmana.
Of all living entities.
Of all living entities.
Translation. O great hero, we only know that we are existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. Please repeat. O great hero,
O great hero,
we only know
We only know
that we are existing in this place.
that we are existing in this
We
place.
do not know
We do not know
what will come after.
what will come after.
Indeed,
Indeed,
we are so foolish
we are so
that
foolish
we do not care
that we do not
to
care
understand
to
who
understand
has created
who has created
this beautiful place
this beautiful place
for our residence.
for our residence.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This lack of Krishna consciousness is called ignorance. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.5, it is called Parabhavastavad Abodhajata. Everyone is born ignorant. The Bhagavatam therefore says that we are all born ignorant within this material world. In our ignorance, we may create nationalism, philanthropy, internationalism, science, philosophy, and so many other things. The basic principle behind all these is ignorance. What then is the value of all this advancement of knowledge if the basic principle is ignorance? Unless a person comes to Krishna consciousness, all of his activities are defeated. This human form of life is especially meant to dissipate ignorance. But without understanding how to dissipate ignorance, people are planning and building many things. After death, however, all of this is finished. We will recite the two verses that are said before the Bhagavatam, which are Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devam Saraswatam Vyasam
Devam Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayam Madhurayat.
Tato Jayam Madhurayat.
Before reciting the sacred Srimad Bhagavatam,
Before reciting the sacred Srimad
which is
Bhagavatam,
our very means of conquest,
which is our very means of conquest,
let us offer our respectful obeisances
let us offer our respectful obeisances
unto Lord Narayan,
unto Lord Narayan,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
unto Narayana Rishi,
unto Narayana
the
Rishi,
supermost human being,
the supermost human being,
unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning,
unto the Saraswati Goddess of
unto
Learning,
Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
so should
Nasta Prayesha Bhadreshu
Nasta
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Sevaya
Bhagavati Yutama Shloke Bhagavati Nashtiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam
By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam
and by rendering service unto the pure devotee of the Lord,
and rendering service unto the pure devotee of the Lord,
all that is inauspicious
all that is inauspicious
within the heart
within the heart
is destroyed practically to nothing.
is destroyed practically to nothing,
And thus loving service
and thus loving service
unto the Supreme Lord
unto the Supreme Lord
is praised with transcendental hymns,
is praised with transcendental
is
hymns,
established
is established
as an irrevocable fact.
as an irrevocable fact.
Om Jnana Timirandasya So this Paranjan, this is an allegorical story by Narada Muni trying to bring, he's speaking to one king, what's his name? Prachinibhasa. And anyway, he's trying to enlighten him. And so this king wants to enjoy the material world, and he has this female who who he was attracted to. And this girl is playing a part in the allegorical story of an ignorant person. So she's saying, we do not know what will come after this body. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who's created this beautiful place for our residence. So this is the common mentality, that we do have a beautiful world to live in, but we create these artificial cities where we live like rats. A rat race. And this is not the way human beings are supposed to live, really. Krishna came to demonstrate the ideal life for human beings. He had cows. He was a cowherd boy. He didn't actually like living in the city. He created Dwarka, which was nothing like our modern Cardiff, or London, or Paris, or New York. Dwarka was a beautiful place. There was no, cigarette butts laying around, or plastic, or, homeless people. It was all very beautiful. All the palaces were made of gold and marble and lapis lazuli, all kinds of diamonds and gems, and India was the wealthiest country in the world, and they even, it wasn't so long ago, still, some of the Maharajas of India, they all had so many Rolls-Royce motor cars and beautiful palaces, because that was just a remnant of the opulence of India. But Krishna didn't want to live in the beautiful city that he created, Dwarka, because he preferred the country. He only went to live in Dwarka because he was trying to protect the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were being attacked by Jarasandha, a big demon. And so he went away, because if they knew that he wasn't living there, they wouldn't attack the innocent residents of Vrindavan. So he created this beautiful palace, beautiful city in the ocean, which they found remnants of, Dwarka. It's off the coast of Gujarat, in the Arabian Sea, actually. But Krishna couldn't wait to get back to Vrindavan. And that's what the Rath Yatra festival is actually all about. That the residents of Vrindavan, they went to meet Krishna at Kurukshetra for the solar eclipse. Apparently there's some special benefit, auspicious time to go to Kurukshetra. It's a holy place of pilgrimage, even though a huge battle took place there. So all the residents from Vrindavan came to meet Krishna when he went to Kurukshetra, and they're trying to persuade Krishna to go back to Vrindavan. And that's what Rath Yatra is all about. That we're pulling the cart with the ropes of love, trying to entice Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. So, in this purport here, Srila Prabhupada talks about how people are very ignorant because they do not know who created this material world. And it is a beautiful place, as I said before, because the material world has everything that a human being needs to live healthily and happily. Previously, that you could drink the water from the rivers and the mountains and the springs. Now you have to drink bottled water, which costs money. I hate bottled water. And it's got particles of plastic in it, which is, obviously not very good for you. And so people, they have to generally do jobs they don't like doing, sitting in an office all day in front of a computer, and then at night they go to the gym to keep fit. So this isn't, progressive life. This is a rat race. And Krishna demonstrated a totally different lifestyle. That you have cows, you live off the land, and you grow some food, and you drink the cow's milk. The cows, they plow the land, and they do all kinds of work. They provide the manure. Of course, nowadays, we have all these big chemical companies that provide fertilizers, a lot of them made out of petroleum products. They're very bad for the soil, they're bad for the body, they're bad for the environment, they cost a lot of money, and they try to introduce these farming practices all over the world. And so in India, they make these seeds. You probably know about this, how they make seeds that are genetically modified, so that they don't reproduce themselves. So you have to keep buying seeds. So in India, because of these modern farming techniques, so many farmers, hundreds of thousands of farmers have committed suicide because they cannot keep up with the modern demands of this full kind of agriculture. Previously, they had heirloom seeds that would, you could use them over and over and over again. And they use cow manure for fertilizer. Cows are so valuable, everything about a cow is valuable. The cow manure is used in so many different ways. Cow manure is pure. Prabhupada points out that dog school has, he said, 32 different types of diseases, including diphtheria, whereas cow manure is pure. In India, they make a solution with water and cow manure, and they smear it in the kitchen because it's actually antiseptic. It keeps away the mosquitoes and the bugs. And they use it for cooking. Cow manure is the best cooking fuel. Prabhupada said the best is cow manure, then wood, then gas, then electricity. Because we're living in a very artificial way, but this is how Krishna demonstrated we should live. We should live simply, and we should get milk from the cows. Cows are amazing creatures. They produce this wonderful substance called milk, which has so many benefits, raw milk. Unfortunately, milk, there are different types of milk. There's type A and type B. And type A comes from cows, Western cows generally, that have been genetically modified to produce a lot of milk. There are some traditional breeds, Jerseys and Guernseys produce type B milk, which is a lot better. It has better benefits, and milk has been proven. I have a friend who is a researcher at the University of Florida, and he has done a lot of research on the benefits of milk, and he found that milk has certain enzymes that actually fight cancer. This is modern research. Of course, according to Ayurveda, milk is a miracle food because milk increases your brain, your intelligence. Very healthy. According to Ayurveda, you can't really be healthy without milk, but it has to be the right kind of milk. It has to be raw milk. A lot of people are lactose intolerant because they get the wrong kind of milk. They drink it cold. It's not supposed to be drunk cold. It's supposed to be drunk hot. Well, I said as hot as possible. When you see all the little bubbles, when you boil milk, those little bubbles, that's how hot you should drink it if you can. So, this is something we should aspire for, to preach in a city and to take back the Lakshmi that the non-devotees think is theirs, but actually everything belongs to Krishna, and they're misusing it. So we're going out, we're trying to give them some benefit by getting them to give a donation. And hopefully, if we get enough donations, we can buy nice farm communities and live in the lap of nature. Prabhupada quoted a poet, John Cowper. He's an English poet who was quite famous. John Cowper said that the city is made by man and the country is made by God. So Prabhupada was glorifying the country that is made by God. So, of course, we're not used to living in the country, and therefore it may be hard for us to adjust to living in the country because we've been cityized for our whole lives. So Prabhupada said you can take the man out of the country, Prabhupada said, somebody else says, you can take the man out of the country, but you can take the man out of the city, but you can't take the city out of the man. So even when we go to live in the country, we're so conditioned to living in a city, it's hard to live, in the country. But, it's something you get it's the mode of goodness, even as devotees, we're affected by different modes of nature. Some devotees are very passionate, some devotees are more in the mode of goodness, some devotees are more in the mode of ignorance. But devotees are supposed to be transcendental. Shuddha sattva means purified goodness. So devotees can live anywhere, because they're not supposed to be so affected by exterior surroundings. So we do the needful. And if the need is to preach in the city and have a beautiful temple to attract people to Krishna consciousness, that's also perfect. But the main problem is that when people don't realize that they're part and parcel of Krishna, every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham bija pradapita savayoneshu kunteya. He says, I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. Birth in this world is only possible because of me. So Krishna, he is Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Radhikurma, Sadhakara Karma. Lord Brahma, he says Krishna is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the cause of all causes. There is no other cause but him. So every living being, everything comes from Krishna, and everything should actually be used to serve Krishna. But when people are misguided and misled and don't understand that there is a supreme being, which is the common mentality, a few people believe in God, but they don't know who God is. Like we had a Muslim gentleman out there yesterday. He was saying he had a table, and he had a sign that said, there is only one God, and that is Allah. You can't really have a philosophical conversation with someone like that. You will never get anywhere, because they are fanatics. There's Christian fanatics, Muslim fanatics, there's fanatics from different religions. And that is one of the reasons why people become atheistic. Because when people are fanatical and dogmatic and they don't have any answers to your questions, intelligent people aren't going to follow. Intelligent people are the leaders of society. So if the leaders of society become atheists, then obviously everyone else is going to follow. So this is the situation we have now. that the so-called intellectuals, they are right in one sense that dogma is not religion, but at the same time nor is atheism. So they come up with all these isms like nationalism, philanthropy, internationalism, science, philosophy, and so many other things. So all of these things have no real meaning. Nationalism. In this life you might be British. A lot of people are proud of Britain. They want to get out of Europe because they think Europe is being invaded by all kinds of foreigners who they don't like. That's the main thing, I think. So, you know, they identify with their country, but according to Krishna, Krishna says, many, many births both you and I have had, O Arjuna. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. So we've had many lives. And this is quite logical. You know, Prabhupada explained this in a very simple way, that your body is always changing. You had a baby body, young boy's body, young man's body, young woman's body. So your body, but you're the same person. You're the same person, you just have a different body. So when you leave this body, you get another body, according to your karma. So the way you look, everything that you get when you're born is exactly what you deserve. The amount of intelligence you have, you can't really change much. You can't change the way you look, for instance. People try, but they're not very successful. Look at Michael Jackson. Very sad story. So, you know, we look a certain way, we have a certain amount of intelligence, we have a certain amount of karma, money coming to us, everything else. It's all prearranged. And we identify with our body. This is ignorance. It's described that, you know, it says that people who identify with this body, which is made of three elements, mucus, bile, and something else, they're no better than animals. So when people identify with the body, this is actually the first sign of ignorance. So therefore the Vedas say, Atato Brahma Jignasa. Who am I? This is when the human form of life begins, is when someone says, who am I? Why am I here? Why do I exist? Without asking these questions, humans simply fall in the category of animals. So we have to not only ask ourselves who we are, but we have to act upon what we are. We have to act on the platform of the soul. But in our modern society, everything's going around the body. So now they don't have any, people don't go to church, but the churches have become the shopping malls. You know, everybody goes to the shopping mall. Everybody, there's so many clothes shops. There's a new fashion. This is another industry that they've created to titillate the body, to try to make the body attractive. Something new every year. They have so many fashion designers. Vogue magazine, you know, Harper's Bazaar. I used to be a fashion photographer. Very superficial kind of job. So the body is actually not beautiful. We try to beautify the body, but the body, we should be embarrassed to have this body. This body is a source of embarrassment to have this ugly body, which gets uglier by the day. That's all right, we're in. But it happens to everybody. So Prabhupada told the story of the wet stool and the dry stool. In India, you know, they take the cow dung and they smear it on, they make cow dung patterns and they put it on a wall or something and it dries out. And when it's dry, they put it in the fire. So the wet dung is thinking, look at that dry dung, it's about to be put in the fire. I'm so lucky, I'm still got some time. But as soon as it's dry, it'll also be put in the fire. So, we shouldn't be, because it's nice to be young. You have a lot of opportunities ahead of you if you use your life nicely. Whatever age you are, actually. It's never too late to take up spiritual life, because the soul is eternal. So it doesn't really matter about the body. But generally we go to where the young people are because they're more malleable. You know what malleable means? Flexible. But anybody of any age can take up Krishna consciousness. And you know, when older people take up Krishna consciousness, it may be a little bit more difficult, but you know, if they bow down and they take it seriously, then Krishna really appreciates that, and then they get so much benefit. So then we have philanthropy. What is philanthropy? Can you tell me what imports here? What's philanthropy? You're not an importer. Well, you're Irish, I guess. No, you go. You've spoken English your whole life. Somebody else. You speak Gaelic?
No, really. A little bit.
What about German or French or
It's a French word.
Latvian, Lithuanian? What? What's philanthropy? You're Welsh, you know what.
I think I'm not sure that it's when you give.
It's on the what?
You're very charitable, is that what you
What?
You're very charitable, is that what
Yeah,
you do?
mundane charity. Philanthropy means, you know, you try to do good in the world, but you don't know what good is. So therefore, Prabhupada said, no, not Prabhupada said, there's an old English proverb that says, the road to hell is lined with good intentions. So people are trying to do the right thing, but they don't know what the right thing is. They open hospitals and they feed people, but if they feed people meat, they're just giving them more bad karma, and they're getting more bad karma. If you open a hospital, you may cure somebody of a disease, but if you're feeding them meat in the hospital, you're not helping them, you're bringing more bad karma. You may cure somebody of some disease, and they may go out and shoot people. You don't know what's going to happen. So you're not really helping anybody because you're just helping the body. It's a nice idea that you want to help people, but if you don't know how to help people, there's no benefit. It's a waste of time. So that's, you know, people with a lot of money, like Bill Gates, they want to educate people in Africa. But, you know, they're not educating them, you know, even Bill Gates, he's not educated into who he actually is, because he thinks he's Bill Gates and he's got a lot of money, but pretty soon he's going to be in a different body. And he may not have a lot of money, who knows? So real welfare work means to give people Krishna consciousness. It means to actually get them to give you their money. Because if they keep it for themselves, generally they're just going to misuse it. They're going to spend it on cigarettes and drinking and all kinds of mundane things that have no real benefit. When they give something to a devotee who uses it in the right way to help establish Krishna consciousness, they really do get some benefit. And even if they just give a penny or 5p, whatever, still that carries with them. They may not even meet a devotee again in this life, but in the next life they'll be able to do more devotional service. Because once the process begins, it's escalating more and more. So the philanthropy, people don't know what is good and how to do good. Internationalism, well, we're trying to be, internationalism, I presume Srila Prabhupada was talking about, relationships between different countries and trying to get along. But Still, we have borders. Every country has borders. Prabhupada said that everybody should be able to go wherever they want. If the world didn't, America doesn't belong to the Americans, Britain doesn't belong to the Britons, they're here for, 50, 100 years, and then they die, and somebody else is born and is British. So, originally, America, for instance, belonged to the Native Americans, the Red Indians. We're not allowed to use that word anymore. The Native Americans. So the British went there, and they killed off the Native Americans. The Native Americans, a lot of them were actually peaceful and friendly. Some of them were even vegetarians, but they killed them off somehow or other, gave them smallpox. They would actually give them diseases. They stole their land. Now the Native Americans, they have little reservations. They've taken the best land, the Americans, the British. And so they live on reservations, and a lot of them drink, and they don't function that well in society. Some of these reservations are places where you can go and gamble. They have casinos there. So, who owns what? Nobody owns any country. Everything belongs to Krishna. But we put up these barriers. It's so hard to get a visa. Prabhupada said if anybody wants to go anybody, they should be free to go there. Because I don't know how that would work in practice. But he might have, 500 million Indians going to America. But anyway, there's a lot of land there. Actually, it's said that America could feed the whole world, the size of the land there. Very big, a lot of open land there. The thing is that a lot of our land is misused because we are, growing cash crops, which are not really valuable. And we're using, like a lot of the land in America is used for growing beef cows, because beef cows are easy to make money from. You just have a few cows, and you don't really have to do a whole lot. You just have to feed them in the winter, keep them for a couple of years, take them to the market, sell them. You don't have to do any work, just feed them. But that's a very common type of farming nowadays. Or else, as you know, they have these huge agricultural machines, John Deere and all these big agribusinesses, huge machines that have taken away the work from man. So people are unemployed, they work in factories, they work in offices, such an unhealthy kind of lifestyle or environment to have to work in. So naturally they become drunkards and they take drugs and they have to, relieve the pain of the boring life they have. It's a horrible situation we're living in right now. So, and then we have science. Well, science, we spoke about that yesterday. Science, the word science really means material development, material advancement, which hasn't really helped anybody, let's face it. We have a lot of machines and gadgets, but they haven't really made anybody's life any easier. We have washing machines and televisions and motor cars. But these things, once again, they have to be produced in a factory. Somebody has to work in a factory. If you have a car, you have to pay insurance, you have to pay for the gasoline, the petrol, you have to keep getting the car fixed. Actually, the motor car industry is, half of the economy is to do with the motor car industry. Between the petroleum and you got to get a new car every few years. So science is producing all these machines, but they just make us lazy, so you don't walk anymore, so you get fat and unhealthy, and cars kill people, very dangerous machines. So science hasn't really done any good to the world. It's made us think we're more intelligent than we used to be, which is not true at all. And it's made life very expensive. Previously, people didn't have money. They used to just trade, you give me some milk, I'll give you some bananas or potatoes, and you give me some potatoes. Not much grows here, you see. At least it could do, but nowadays, as you all know, the food is all imported. Everything is imported. So if there was a major catastrophe within 3 days, no one would have any food because the supermarkets wouldn't have any food left. And everyone would be struggling with what to eat. So this is the wonderful science has produced these problems, really. And science may have created some medical help, but most of the medical problems people have nowadays, the really serious ones, are products of the modern lifestyle. Like the car accidents. If I had a car accident, I probably wouldn't wait for an ayurvedic doctor. I would go to the hospital. But, the scientists have created the car, and they've created some kind of medical system to cure the problems. But in a more natural society, people didn't have the same medical problems. Cancer is a very new disease. It's not a traditional disease. It's something that has come about by our lifestyle. And then philosophy. Prabhupada talks about philosophy. Well, we have so many speculators. There's so many different philosophers, but none of them really, at least in the last 100 years, have talked about God, hardly at all. So that we have so many philosophers, but they're trying to explain why we're here, or give us comfort. But ultimately, the greatest philosophers are different incarnations of God, like Buddha. But Buddha, his philosophy, Buddha's still popular all over the world. Even Western people get into Buddhism, but he doesn't really have much of a philosophy, to be honest. Because he had 9 main points that the Buddhists took. One of them is that the Vedas are written by man, and that the soul is not eternal. I can't remember all of them, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about them. And so they believe that you have your karma, and as long as you are creating karma, then you have to get another physical body. As soon as you give up doing material activities, you don't have to get another physical body. So then you achieve nirvana, which means you cease to exist. So you basically, that's the goal of the Buddhists, to cease to exist. Because if you don't exist anymore, you don't have to suffer. Of course, there's many different types of Buddhism because people have their own angle on it, but Buddha was an incarnation of Krishna. His main teaching was, and this is a lot more advanced than most modern philosophers, is that he taught that one should be vegetarian. That if you kill animals, you can't actually get any good result. So therefore his main principle was ahimsa, non-violence. But even the Dalai Lama eats meat. This is the age of hypocrisy. The Dalai Lama eats meat because his doctor told him, if you don't eat meat, you're not going to live very long. So this is, the fallen state of society. But even the so-called spiritual leaders, they don't follow their own religion, the basic principle of non-violence and ahimsa. One good thing about, there are some Christians called the Seventh-day Adventists, probably all over the world, but they are actually some of the longest living people in the world, the Seventh-day Adventists. There's 3 or 4, I read an article in National Geographic, you know what that is? So National Geographic is quite authoritative, so it talked about all these different, only 4 the longest living people in the world. So one of this category was actually the Seventh-day Adventists, and some of them live over to be over 100. They're still driving their motor cars in California. They live in California or something. They're pious people. They're Christians, but they really try to follow properly, you know. And they're vegetarians. So, but you know, we don't really have any great philosophers. There's a lot of famous philosophers, but none of them actually gave the process of Bhakti Yoga. Of course, if you look at the great teachers of India, like Ramanujacharya, Yamunacharya, all the 6, Kannada, so many great philosophers, but Lord Chaitanya said that I'm a fool. Lord Chaitanya was God, and he said, I'm a fool. And he only left 8 verses, even though he was the greatest philosopher. But he didn't teach philosophy. He taught that if you chant Hare Krishna, then you can perfect your life. That was his teaching. So Lord Chaitanya, he was the greatest philosopher. He only left 8 verses. He left his disciples to write all the books. His disciples were the greatest philosophers, like Jiva Goswami. But his basic teaching was that, you know, chant Hare Krishna, Nam Namakari Bhada, Nijasava Shaktis, Chaptani, and Tasmani Ekala. Etadashi Tavakripa Bhagavan Mamati Dudai Brahmitrishyam, Ihajamena Ragaha. You know that verse? Shikshastikam, everybody should know the Shikshastikam is very important. Even if you learn nothing else, no other verses, you should learn the Shikshastikam. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all of your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. So he's putting himself into the position of a conditioned soul, that we don't have attraction to chanting Hare Krishna. So he's encouraging us. You know, he's trying to, don't worry, if you have no attraction, don't give up. Because at the end of the Shikshastikam, he says, Yugaritam Shimeshana, Yugaritam Nimeshana, Chakshusha Prabhushaitam, Sunyaitam Jagat Saradam, Govinda Virahaname. It says, O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering one moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain. I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. So that is the culmination of the Shikshastikam as a progressive, you know, by giving up mundane enjoyment, Nadana Najanam Nastanurim Kavatam Jagadishikame, Mama Janamani Janamishri Bhavatat Bhakti. It says, Almighty Lord, I do not desire any wealth, nor any beautiful women, nor any number of followers. All I want is your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. So if we serve Lord Chaitanya by spreading Krishna consciousness and teaching people to chant Hare Krishna, then we automatically get the greatest result, more than any other process. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any questions? Okay. Yeah.
The second quote that you made.
What's that?
Just on the quote that you made.
Yeah.
You can take the man out of the city, but not the city out of the man.
Right.
I felt like it kind of really resonated with me when we kind of go into devotional life. it might not be fully true that we can't fully take the materialist out of us, but like we can take the materialist into devotion, but the material attitude still keeps alive within us for a long period of time, depending on sincerity and desire. I just wonder how we can more determine ourselves, because you sometimes can get slack or overwhelmed with material things, and even by understanding so many things, it's really.
You mean living in a city?
No, it's applying devotional life.
Just in general.
Yeah.
How can you be free from material desires?
Yeah, how can we more determine ourselves in devotional life and be more fixed in devotional life while being pulled around still by so many material desires?
Well, it takes determination. You have to be determined, and you have to have good sadhana, and you have to, ideally you have to be rightly situated. That's why Prabhupada wanted Varnashram, because people can do book distribution for some time, but not many people can do it for a long time. And it may not be everybody's nature to do it forever. I like doing this, and I still do it, except in private. Yeah, tough spot. No, I'm doing straight books in my dhoti. Anyway. So it's not so easy. People don't do it their whole life, and if you can, it's fine. But you have to find some service that you can do easily, which is more your nature. If that's not your nature, maybe your nature, I don't know. So, Varnashram means that everybody's engaged according to their particular propensity, and in that way, it's easier to maintain one's Krishna consciousness if you're doing something that you like doing. You may not all like cooking or like doing deity worship or something, but everybody has some talent they can use in Krishna service. So Prabhupada said that expert means that you do something that's easy for you to do. We're not trying to do something which is beyond us. You may have a lot of capacity, maybe you can do a lot, I don't know. But at the same time, we have our limitations, and we shouldn't aspire to do more than what we're qualified to do. We should try to do what we're qualified to do, and be satisfied doing that. One thing about when you get old, you realize your limitations, and you kind of accept that maybe you're not going to suddenly become a Paramahansa or whatever, suddenly become a pure devotee. It's a lifetime, maybe more than one lifetime, it takes time. But if you keep practicing Krishna consciousness and keep your sadhana and keep reading the books and everything else, then you will become purified and your material desires will go away. But you might have to get married in the meantime, and go through that kind of, because that's the basic material desire is to have a relationship with a member of the opposite sex. So you might have to, or you might have to get married, who knows. But that is, then you have your own place to live and all that. But, the process works, because, if you're chanting Hare Krishna, which is a very powerful sound vibration, and you do your sadhana and you follow the program, then you do become purified. And when you become purified, you just think, you grow out of things, like a child grows out of his toys. So when you practice, as you mature, you grow out of your material desires. You don't have the same desires, right? Yeah.
When someone from outside come and can observe
our lifestyle, can think that it's very, it could be very impersonal, meaning that we all do the same thing at the same time. We wake up early. It's very like there's people will see mostly the discipline that we have in the lifestyle, and we do the same thing every morning, the same morning program, the same thing. And so how can you see personalism in the structure that could be?
Well, practically everybody out there does the same thing. Everybody gets up and goes to work, they drive their car, they commute to work, they have their cup of coffee, they clock into their job. But basically, in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, devotees aren't really aware of their individual natures so much. But as you become purified, you have different devotees have different propensities. Like in our movement, we have a lot of senior devotees, right? A lot of older people who practice Krishna consciousness, and their lifestyle is very variegated. In the beginning, they were all coming to the temple, going to Mangalarti, going out to Sankirtan and everything else. But after some time, you will develop your own kind of, not your own lifestyle, but your unique individual tendencies will become more manifest. Just like we have, Shiva Maharaj, okay, some of your disciples of Maharaj. So he's very different from Indrajumna Maharaj or Jayaveda Swami, if you know that. Jayaveda Swami, he's been around since 1967 or something. He's a very simple sannyasi. He doesn't really have any disciples. He didn't want any disciples, he's got a couple. He does editing and he goes around giving class. So, totally different from Indrajumna Maharaj. Indrajumna Maharaj is, he's at this big festival in Poland now, the Woodstock Festival, and he's got, people chanting Hare Krishna, thousands of people dancing, they're feeding thousands of people. So, they're just so different. So, we're all individuals, but in the beginning, we're all following a very simple, kind of basic lifestyle. And then, our individual characteristics will develop. But, everybody has to eat. Our eating is like, chanting Hare Krishna is important to us as eating. So we're doing the same thing, it's just like everybody in the material world has to eat. And, they have a lot of things they will do in common. But, there's nothing wrong with that. Because if we individually try to do these things by ourselves, it would be very difficult. We do it as a group because we get strength from each other's association. So when we do it together, it's just a lot more enlightening. You can't really have a kirtan by itself. But you're all different. You may all get up early in the morning and come to the temple at the same time, but you're all individuals. You all have your way of thinking, and we all have a particular mentality. We're following, we're dressing the same. It's like a uniform because we're part of an organization. Organizations have uniforms. Like, UPS, they all have uniforms. They have the same band. They wear the same brown jackets, shirts, and pants, and everything else. So it's a uniform. So this is our lifestyle, and it's the best lifestyle. You don't have to be different to be, an individual, or to be good. There's strength in numbers, and there's there's strength in being part of an organization that has specific practices, which has a very regulated lifestyle. One of the problems with the modern society is people aren't regulated. They go to bed at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, then they have to drink 5 cups of coffee, go to college, get all hyped up so they can pass their exam. They have a horrible lifestyle. They'll go to McDonald's. There's a lot more people in the material world supporting all these demoniac kind of institutions and getting no benefit and actually ultimately going to hell. Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
The concept of living simply sounds very appealing, but it's not reality for a lot.
It's not
reality in terms of we have to still live in the material world and we in Krishna consciousness rely heavily still on the materialistic people to give money to us in one context, unless some people or societies, communities have some wealthy people attached to them. So in one hand, we said these shouldn't be materialistic, and then the other hand we still rely heavily on them for their charity as well, for their Lakshmi. Like, how do we get that compromise of not being over judgmental to people which are still absorbed in that lifestyle, because we ourselves still rely heavily on for our communities to grow. We everything costs money.
Good point. Yeah. Well, the voters shouldn't be judgmental about anybody. We're actually doing them a favor when they give us Lakshmi. We know that because they'll just misuse it, and they get so much benefit for giving devotees and getting a book. So, it's all about compassion, not being judgmental. We don't judge people, and ultimately, we don't. Prabhupada wanted these farm communities, so that's our goal. Ultimately, that most devotees should live on the farms. When you have a family, you don't really want to bring your family up in the city. In fact, that's why the Alachua community is so big, because there's a couple of good schools there, and that's the biggest community probably in the world. That a lot of people live in Alachua because there's a place to send their children, and it's in the country. It's not self-sufficient community. It should be. The only decent self-sufficient community is in Hungary, and Maharaj Shiva Swami wants to make that totally self-sufficient, and he has very high ideals for that, very high goals. That anything which isn't produced on the farm is kind of living a lie, because we're trying to demonstrate self-sufficiency. We're buying shoes, or we're buying clothes, or whatever else. It's not really ideal. The ideal thing is that you're totally self-sufficient. You produce your own clothing, your own, wagon wheels, everything. But you need a certain number of people to do that. And he says you need about 10,000 people to have an ideal place, which provides enough work opportunities for different tradesmen. But it's true, we are living, because of the donations that people give us. That's superficial, because ultimately we live in, Krishna supporting all of us, because he's supporting them. All their money belongs to Krishna. We're just giving it back to Krishna. But we shouldn't be judgmental. We should feel sorry for people because they have such horrible lifestyles. They have terrible lives. take the point that we should be compassionate and feel sorry for people and do Sankirtan in that mood. Anything else? Alright, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai.